Hello, everyone. Welcome to an emergency trade recap with Bill and Walt from the Sabermetrics podcast. So JJ Peterka obviously just traded last night for Michael Kesselring and Josh Doan of the Utah Mammoth. JJ Peterka making his way to Salt Lake City. And I saw Bill send out a reaction video this morning, but we're going to see now that things have cooled down a bit. Like, what are your thoughts on the trade a few hours later?
Yeah, definitely got some caffeine in me, so that definitely helps. So a little bit more coherent. And over the course of the day, I definitely say I'm a little less angry about it, even though there were some guys maybe left on the table that I would like a little bit more. But I'd say in a vacuum, the two guys that they brought in, I like. I think they'll do well on the Sabres team, but at the same time, it just feels like the value was kind of missed. And again, wasn't great defensively. Peterka had some maybe off the ice things that are really like coming to light today that I didn't even know about. But the more that I hear about them, and yes, a lot of them could be rumors, but there's also stuff that people have seen with their own two eyes, and it's maybe not great. And the thing about the two guys coming in is high character. And that's something not to sneeze at. I think that's really important to this team going forward, but it's great if you have that, but you don't have the value coming back. And where are you going to find all of those goals that Peterka was able to produce in your top six? I think it really hinges on this Byram deal because they're running out of trade assets at that point to bring in someone big. So I don't want to pass too much judgment. I just feel like the value might have been missed a bit here.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to Bill about this earlier. I kind of view the trade as you have $100 gift card to Red Lobster. You're really craving Olive Garden, so you sell that $100 gift card to Red Lobster for a $75 gift card to Olive Garden. So you're getting those needs. You're getting those two pieces that you really need. You're getting that right-handed defenseman. You're getting that utility middle six forward that plays, that tough playoff style game. Just for a guy like Peterka, it might not be the best value. And maybe we kind of inflated Peterka's value a bit on our end with Frank Saravelli coming out saying the pieces that the Sabres could have gotten for him, because I don't know how much I believe that, since he does seem to be a mouthpiece for Peterka's agent, Alan Walsh. But I do think Alan Walsh, at the end of the day, I think he got what he wanted. I think he got Peterka on a team that's not the Sabres and got him signed to a pretty sizable contract. Only 5 years, but the cap's going to be up, way up after those 5 years. So who knows? He could earn even more AAV on that next contract. And, kind of my initial reaction this morning for anyone who follows me on Twitter was that I kind of thought this was a cheap owner trade. And I'll pull up this tweet that was kind of going over what Adams talked about in his end of season presser. And as you can see, he's pretty non-committal here on whether or not the Sabres will spend to the cap this offseason. And I do believe this trade will make it much more difficult for the Sabres to actually spend to the cap this offseason. Peterka going the other way. He signs a $7.7 million deal, which it seemed like the Sabres were kind of budgeting for. At least that's what we were told last offseason. Apparently that's not the case, and they bring on Michael Kesselring, 1 year left at around $1.3 million, and Josh Doan coming in at under $1 million cap hit. So you have two guys with around a $2.2, $2.3 million combined cap hit. So that's like $5 million plus you're saving compared to what things would be if you just gave Peterka that contract. So it's not going to be too easy for the Sabres to spend to the cap this offseason unless they make some major splashes. And as you can see with this team, I feel like the past few offseasons, they do make some splashes. It's never enough splashes, always a few splashes short. And I just don't think there's anything this offseason that's kind of making me think that this will be different this time around. I just think we've seen this story too many times before where I'm just like, I'm not convinced they're going to spend money.
At the same time, it does give them the out to say, well, we have to save this money because now we have more RFAs coming up, because they were doing that for this year. Devin Levi and Jack Quinn aren't going to get a lot, and JJ Peterka's gone. So I guess technically they could sign extensions starting July 1st, but who knows if that's actually going to happen? And they will be RFAs after the season, but yeah, I mean, it does give them the opportunity to say, yeah, we didn't spend this extra 6 million or whatever it ends up being because we have RFAs coming up. And it's like, well, we've heard that before, so that's a little unfortunate. But on the positive note, let's dive into the guys that were actually brought in. Walt, I know you have a couple charts and analytics that you wanted to break down for us.
Yeah, I mean, first up, we'll talk about Michael Kesselring. We'll just go over, Jay Fresh's chart on Kesselring here. And as you can see, a lot of blue on there. I mean, he's a positive player on offense and defense in terms of his 5-on-5 impacts. Very blue for those goals and primary assists and that finishing. So for a defenseman, he does have a pretty good shot, and he does have the ability to score some goals. So I think in a larger role, we may even see him in double-digit goals next season. So as a defenseman, he is a guy who can let it rip. And, he put up a decent amount of goals and not a lot of ice time last year. I think one key thing to look on here is that time on ice, third pair. He was not given a lot of ice time last season in Utah. And from the sounds of it, I mean, we never heard anything official from the team, but just from the fans chattering, the thought is that Kesselring will try to be paired with one of their top left-handed defensemen and Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin. How will a guy like Kesselring do in scaling up to his game to a role of that size? I guess that's still to be determined. So that's kind of one area of concern for me with this chart on Kesselring. So I think you do have an effective player here. Like, you have a 6'5" right-handed defenseman who can skate really well. I don't necessarily think he fits like a glove as an Owen Power partner, just because both these guys, they're both big defensemen. Both can skate pretty well. I think their weaknesses are somewhat similar. I'd rather see Owen Power paired with a defenseman who's better at puck retrievals, kind of elite at killing plays before they enter the zone. And that tends to be a smaller defenseman, which I think most people wouldn't think about as a perfect Owen Power partner as a smaller defenseman. But I'm a big fan of killing plays upstream. Like, I think to improve defensively, you just have to make sure that player doesn't have to play defense. Because I think with Owen Power, it is somewhat of a weakness. So kill the play before the puck even gets into the zone. I think that's key. And maybe Kesselring with the skating ability can kind of adjust towards that role, get better at puck retrievals, be really aggressive with killing plays before they enter the zone. I think he does have the traits to be that. I just don't think he is that right now. So I don't think he's like a guarantee to be Owen Power's partner. I do think there's a world where I could see him even being paired with Rasmus Dahlin. I think he's going to be given opportunities to kind of move around those pairs with the Sabres defensemen as we start this season, and we'll see where he ends up.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where even if he is deficient in maybe rush defense or something like that, I'm going to bank on a 6'5" defenseman with a long reach that can skate well instead of maybe someone else. Like, if someone's going to maybe improve that, I would put my money on a guy with that kind of frame and skating ability. So not only did Kesselring join the Sabres, but so did Josh Doan. So did you want to maybe break down his chart as well?
Yes, we'll pull up Josh Doan's chart right here. Obviously, his claim to fame is being the son of Shane Doan. And I think a lot of people thought that was the only reason he went so high in the second round when he was selected by Arizona at the time. But I do think there's stuff with his game that's really interesting. And I do think he's proven me wrong at almost every level that I've doubted him, because I was never a huge Josh Doan fan as a prospect. But I do think at the pro level, he's really, kind of grown his game to be that NHL utility middle six forward. Utah, he wasn't given a ton of opportunity last season in terms of ice time. You see on this chart, time on ice fourth liner, but you see those two blue boxes on there, even strength offense and even strength defense. He's a guy who really impacted the game in favor of his team on both offense and defense. It didn't result in a crazy amount of goals for. Part of that was due to his finishing. which you can see here, second percentile finisher. And if you look at even at that chart on the bottom right, the offense versus defense versus finishing, you see, how highly percentile wise his offense and defensive impacts ranked. Then way at the bottom, the second percentile is his finishing. And players like this concern me sometimes. I do think they can be useful as an ingredient to align with more skilled players, but I don't necessarily think they can, be a guy that takes over the game on their own unless he improves that finishing, unless he gets, better offensive traits. Because I do think he lacks that like elite offensive thinking. I think just with his motor and the way he's always active, I do think there's enough there to impact the games positively in terms of danger for and danger against. I just think he may lack that final step to kind of like create those offensive opportunities and be an offensive weapon. So I'd be a little careful with trying to scale up his role too quickly. I do think he could be an all right complementary piece, but he's not really a guy I'll ever have more than, third, fourth line, maybe second line in some situations, expectations for.
I will say the one thing that people might be a little concerned about is the finishing and goals percentage. Power play doesn't really bother me too much because I'm not expecting him to play on the power play anyway. Probably would like to see something in the penalty kill department, but for finishing and goals, that is something that he actually addressed himself when talking to the media after the trade, obviously. And that's one of the things that he's focusing on. That's some pretty good self-awareness. I don't know if he looked at his own chart too or anything like that, but if he can, I'm going to assume that he probably won't be at 2% finishing or 12% goals. Maybe it's a little bit better goals-wise, but I would think finishing probably goes up a little bit. So we'll see. Again, low expectations for him. Definitely don't want to pencil him into the top 6 by any means. So we'll see what happens in the bottom 6 for him. I did want to ask, you did say that it might be better for Kesselring to play with Dahlin than Power, even though the conventional wisdom is this is a partner for Power. What about Josh Doan? Do you think, like you said, it might be a complementary piece to a couple of guys? Who in the bottom 6 do you think would be a good fit for Josh Doan to play with?
I really kind of want to see him on a line with Ryan McLeod, just because I think if you throw those two guys out there, I think they can cause chaos, and I think they can, really tilt the ice in favor of their team. So I think both guys are strong in that regard. Maybe you want a more like offensive finishing piece on that line. So if you had a guy like Jason Zucker on there,
Yeah.
I think you have the makings of, just a solid third line, and then it lets you be a little bit more flexible. You could slide Greenway down to that fourth line, and it gets tough, thinking about what to do with that top 6 because we're still in the early stages of this offseason. And I think for this trade as a whole, I think it's difficult to evaluate because we're still in the early stages of this offseason. So I think this trade right here, I think it makes that Byram trade that much more important. Like they need an offensive player in that trade. They need a guy who could put the puck in the back of the net. They need a guy who can, play a top 6 role. Because I think right now there's a pretty big hole there unless you consider Jack Quinn a top 6 defenseman when after the season he just had. I think that would be absolutely insane to do.
Not to call you out, but for Jack Quinn to be a top 6 forward.
Oh, top 6 forward.
I just pictured Jack Quinn playing defense, and
no, yeah, that would be that
would be
would
wild.
honestly. I mean, if you got Gavin McKenna, if that was your goal next season, I think having Jack Quinn play defense would be perfect for that.
Definitely, and I do kind of going back to the trade overall. I do kind of share some of people's frustration, especially with some of the names that were brought up that may or may not have been available for him, especially like a Marco Rossi. I really think they need a playmaking center, and he fits that bill. I understand the stature wise, and he's in a contract dispute and everything. Jordan Kyrou as well. Again, we don't know the validity of those rumors, but
Saravelli.
Yeah, it's Saravelli, which he was right on the Peterka trade in general. He's like, no, he's getting traded, and he did. So, yeah, I'm definitely on the same page as people where they're like, look, what upset that those are some guys that are probably more value, but like you said, $100 gift card and they traded him for 75 for something they really liked. And at the end of the day, like the trade's done. They can't go back and change it now. So onward and upward. And like you said, really looking forward to that Byram trade because this was a risky one for sure. Could certainly pan out. Very much like the McLeod and Savoy one. That's why I'm hesitant to really bash them. And as the day's gone on, I've gotten a little bit better about it. But it's a risky one. That Byram trade, it's going to be
Yeah,
big. We'll see what
yeah,
happens tomorrow.
yeah. That's what I think. I think it's like a part of a story trade. I think if this is just part of the story of the offseason, just that
Yep.
first part of the story, and then the second part of the story is that forward from the Byron trade, I think it makes sense. But, time and time again, the Sabres every offseason, we've seen them make those part of a story trades and just never finish the story and then just run the season with the incomplete roster where you have guys and roles they're not ready for. So I hope that's not the case this offseason. Hopefully they get a little bit more serious. Hopefully they learn. Hopefully they spend money. Hopefully they're aggressive. But I guess all of that is to be determined.
Well, we will be there live at 6:45 for the NHL draft tomorrow, Friday evening. So definitely join us. We'll see what happens before then. We'll see what happens live when we're on air, and we'll go from there. So appreciate everyone tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.